Hey, what's going on, guys? Mr. Manfredo got another YouTube video for you today. Um, if you're very observant, you might see in the corner that it is January 7th on my computer. But by this time, we'll have come back. It's at least January 11th or 12th for you guys. Um, so without further ado, let's just get started. Um, as you are aware, this past Thursday, you did direct objects for me. Now we are moving on to indirect objects. I noticed that some of us struggled a little bit with direct objects. And so hopefully by the time you guys come back, we can have a little bit more of in-depth instruction in class, and hopefully we can get you guys squared away. So as far as indirect objects go, um, they are fairly similar to direct objects in that you can only have them in a sentence with an action verb. So that's always the first step, like we talked about in the last YouTube video. If you're trying to find a direct object, if you're trying to find your indirect object, the first step is to find your action verb. So I have a little trick that I want to teach you guys as to how to memorize how to find an indirect object. So the first rule is you need to know, obviously, a direct object receives the action of your verb. So if you throw a basketball, your basketball is the thing that's receiving the action. It's the thing that's being thrown. It's your direct object. If I throw little Jimmy the basketball, the person that is receiving the direct object is your indirect object. So I'll go over that one more time. Your direct object receives the action of your verb, and your indirect object receives the direct object. That's a mouthful, but I'm sure you guys will be able to kind of see what I'm talking about as we look through some examples. In other words, it's usually a person, place, or thing. It can be a pronoun as well, but it's a noun, pronoun, or another word group that essentially is receiving the object that is being acted upon. And so I'll kind of show you what that means here down here. We've got our indirect objects highlighted in red, and we've got our direct objects in blue. So we remember the direct object is the thing that is being acted upon. The indirect object is the noun, pronoun, or word group that is receiving your direct object. So number one, the waiter gave her the bill. Bill is our direct object. Her is our indirect object. So the waiter did not give her, the waiter gave a bill to her, right? And so the thing that's being acted upon is the bill, and so that is our direct object. The person receiving the bill or receiving our direct object is her, and so that's our indirect object. Let's look at two more. Pam left the waiter a tip. So Pam left what? She left a tip, and she left it for who? She left it for the waiter. So the tip is our direct object, and then the waiter is the thing that is receiving the tip, and so the waiter must be our indirect object. That's why it's highlighted in red. Number three, I passed Timmy the ball. I passed what? I passed the ball, but I passed it to who? Well, I passed it to Timmy. Timmy received the direct object. The direct object received the verb, and so Timmy is our indirect object. He's highlighted in red here. So there's one more thing that you need to remember when you're finding a direct object or an indirect object. They can also be compound, just like direct objects. I had a student email me today and ask me if direct objects can be compound. Yes, they can. It went over that on the first page of your direct objects worksheet. And much like direct objects, indirect objects can also be compound. So you've got to be careful with that. If multiple people, if multiple things are receiving that direct object, then they are all part of your indirect object. So here's an example of a compound indirect object. Felicia threw David, Jane, and Paula slow curveballs. So Felicia, the thing that she actually threw were the curveballs, so that's our direct object. David, Jane, and Paula received those curveballs, so they are our indirect object. I've got 20 seconds. Let's look at your homework. So all I need you to do is find your direct objects and your indirect objects. Not too difficult. Remember, they can be compound, so if multiple things are being thrown or kicked, those will be in your direct object. The people or things that are receiving those direct objects are your indirect objects.